Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. Today, after the day job, I am off to check out the new horror comedy, Lisa Frankenstein. So what is the plot of Lisa Frankenstein? Well, it tells the story of a teenage girl who falls in love with a dead boy. Seriously, falls in love with a guy who is dead. Somehow or another, I'm guessing with her true love, the boy comes back to life. And then, in order to keep him alive, she has to find body parts from living people to give him, basically, keep him going. Kind of Frankenstein meets zombie. Well, anyways, this movie is written by Diablo Cody, who also wrote Jennifer's Body and Juno, and is also directed by Zelda Williams, daughter of Robin Williams. So needless to say, I am really intrigued with this film. So it's enough of me sitting here yammering on. It is time for me to get out the door because I gotta get to work, and then I am off to check out Lisa Frankenstein. Welcome back, just getting home, and you know what guys? I enjoyed this movie. I had a pretty good time with it. So let's get this started, shall we? I like to get things started with the negatives and then move into the positives to end the video on the ever so important high note. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the zombie. We're just going to call him a zombie for the sake of argument, okay? The zombie really doesn't have any kind of rules. Kind of has rules, but not really anything that you have to follow or whatnot. You know how in movies when there's something mystical, magical, or whatever, there's something that you have to do in order for it to happen? Well, in this world, it just seems as long as you hit something with lightning, it can come back to life. Because that's really the only explanation you get on why this zombie is up wandering around. Apparently in this world, the right strike of lightning is going to bring your ass right back. Which I'm okay with that. You Friday the 13th 6'd it. Fine. I can live with that. The one thing that I wish that they would have done was given a little bit more background story to the zombie. Now, at the beginning of the film, they do a really cool little animated bit. It looks like shadow puppets and all, and it was a really cool little thing that they did. But unfortunately, they leave out some, what I consider, important details on what's going on with this zombie. Now, in the intro, I said that they have to collect body parts to kind of keep him healthy, keep him going. And that's true. They do have to collect body parts to keep him going. He's missing certain body parts, and they have to go find them, and she sews them back on. But I don't understand why. Now, I get it. He's a zombie. Things get old and rot. I get it. But these were severed off. It's pretty obvious when you see the film that these items were cut off of his body, and you're like, but why? What was the reasoning behind that? Was he cursed or something? Because he didn't find true love in a certain amount of time in that time period? Did they do certain things to your body? It's just didn't really dive in enough on why certain body parts were missing from him. I would have just liked to have a bit more background on the zombie. And I know he's not the main character. Lisa is the main character of this film. But it just felt like we needed a little bit more background story on the zombie. And one more thing, and that is this movie is PG-13. Now, I've said before that I generally don't mind if a good horror film is PG-13. I've seen plenty of them before. However, this movie looks like it was cut to be PG-13. it really feels like we're going to hear something about a bloodier, violenter director's cut at some point in time. It just seems like they were trying to cut it down, the violence in this, so they could get a wider audience, get the teenage butts in the seats, if you know what I mean, which generally is fine, but you can really tell that this film had a much gorier goal than it actually does. And it doesn't hurt the film in any way, shape, or form. It's just something I noticed. I really wish that they would have gone ahead and pushed the boundaries a little bit more, made this more of an adult-themed film, because I don't think that this was necessarily for young people. Now, I didn't say it in my intro, but the film does take place in 1989, and that's my main reason why I'm like, okay, why wasn't this film bloodier? Because your target audience seems like people that would have grown up in the 80s. But no, they kept it PG-13, and I really feel like that was something that was done at the end of making this. Once you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. Alright, so let's move into the positives, shall we? The first thing I want to talk about is our lead actor in this, Katherine Newton. She plays Lisa and does an outstanding job. She has a really big role. I think she's on screen for the entire thing, and she does an outstanding job. I really enjoyed her in this movie. I liked her in this movie a lot more than Ant-Man and Wasp. Not that her performance sucked. That movie just sucked. She was fine. So was everybody in that movie. That movie just sucked. But in this film, she got a good script, and she did some good acting. I liked her character. I was behind her the entire time. Even when she was doing some terrible things, I'm like, well, Lisa has her reasons, man. She's had a tough time. Leave her alone. So yeah, she made a very full, likable, lovable character. There's also some really great moments of makeup in this film. Our zombie looks really good. Not too gruesome, but he's obviously dead. And I did mention that I felt like this was kind of nerfed a little bit. It is kind of obvious, honestly. And I'm not going to keep dwelling on that. But the practical effects that we do get in this film look outstanding. A lot of love and tender care went into the making of this film. It's very well directed. The pacing is pretty good. There are some moments where the film slows down a bit, and honestly, we could have gotten some more background on our zombie guy in those moments, but no, they're not terrible. They don't linger around or anything. The dialogue in the film is outstanding, and one of the things I also really liked about this movie the most, and this ties into the dialogue, is it really gave me that 80s vibe. Not that the movie felt like a movie that was made in the 80s. It still felt like a modern film, but it takes place in the 80s, and it was the 1980s. It wasn't like in Totally Killer, where the 80s were played as like a parody or a spoof. This film takes place in the 1980s, and it looks like it's taking place in the 1980s. They got the vibe right, they've got the styles right, they have the look right, the dialogue, like I said, was right on point. Everything fit just fine for the time period, and it worked. And in doing so much detail and all, and not making the 80s look like something that was goofy and a big joke, again plays into the reasoning why I don't feel like this was made for a younger audience. But I digress. So that's all I have for you today, guys. Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.